The road was older than memory, a thin line of cracked asphalt that wound through the valley, bordered by fields gone to seed and fences long since fallen. The wind moved through them like a whisper, soft and uncertain, carrying with it the smell of dust and rusted metal. At dawn, the light came slow, pale, and without warmth. The clouds hung low over the hills, their bellies gray and swollen, but unwilling to break. Somewhere far off, a bell was ringing, clear, measured, endless. The horse came from the east. He was tall and lean, his coat once chestnut but now dulled by dust. His mane hung in uneven strands, tangled by wind and rain, that hadn't fallen in weeks. A length of frayed rope still hung from his neck where a halter had been, swinging with each step like a pendulum. His hooves struck the road in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Clop, clop, clop. A sound that matched the ringing in the distance. No one knew where he had come from. The nearest farm had been empty for years, its windows boarded, its fields overtaken by weeds. Yet here he was, moving down the road as if following something unseen. At the edge of the village, where the road split into two narrow lanes, stood an old church. Its white paint had long since peeled away, and ivy crawled up its bell tower. The bell inside, a relic from a time when people still gathered, swung gently now, though no hand pulled its rope. Each chime echoed across the empty houses, scattering the silence like birds startled from a tree. The horse stopped at the gate. He stood still, head low, ears flicking at the sound. The bell tolled again, once, twice, before falling quiet. The wind shifted. From the porch of the small house across the road, an old man stepped into the light. His name was Isaac Byrne, the last soul still living in what had once been a thriving town. His beard was white, his hands rough from years of disuse rather than work. He squinted against the dawn, eyes narrowing as he saw the animal standing by the gate. He muttered to himself, "Well, I'll be damned." He shuffled down the porch steps, his cane tapping softly against the wood. The horse turned its head, nostrils flaring, but didn't move away. Isaac stopped a few paces from the fence. "Where'd you come from, friend?" he asked, voice hoarse from too many days without use. The horse blinked, slow, solemn. A fly buzzed near its ear, and it flicked it away with a lazy twitch of its tail. "You alone?" Isaac asked. He looked down the road, east first, then west. Both directions stretched into emptiness. The bell rang again. Isaac glanced toward the church. "That damn thing hasn't moved in months," he said quietly. "Not since—" He stopped himself. Some memories didn't deserve to be spoken aloud. The horse took a step forward, hooves grinding softly against the gravel. Isaac could see now that one of its shoes was missing, the back left. The leg above it was caked with dried mud and a thin line of blood. The animal had been walking a long way. "All right," Isaac said, sighing. "You'd best come in, then." He opened the gate with a slow creak. The horse hesitated, then stepped through, one measured step at a time, as if uncertain of its welcome. Isaac guided it toward the old trough beside the barn. He filled it from the rain barrel, though the water was low and faintly green. The horse drank deeply, each breath shuddering through its body. Isaac watched in silence. When the animal finished, it lifted its head and looked toward the church again. The bell had stopped. The air was still. Isaac followed its gaze. "You hear it too, don't you?" he murmured. "That sound doesn't come from metal anymore." He reached up, laid a hand against the horse's neck. The skin was warm beneath his palm, the pulse steady but tired. "You rest here a while," he said. "You've earned it." He turned toward the house, but before he could take a step, the bell rang again, louder this time, closer. The sound rolled across the valley like thunder. Isaac froze. The horse lifted its head sharply, ears forward, muscles tense. The bell tolled once more, then stopped, leaving the air thick and heavy. Isaac whispered, "No wind strong enough to move that rope." The horse stamped once, the sound sharp against the quiet, and then, without command or reason, began to walk, slowly, toward the church. Isaac called after him, but the horse didn't turn. It moved with the same steady rhythm as before, each step matching the faint echo of the bell still hanging in the air. When it reached the gates again, the wind picked up. The bell swung once more, its voice breaking the silence. And though the morning sun had finally begun to rise, the road and the fields remained the same color as ash. The horse stood there, facing the tower, unmoving, and the bell, unseen, untouched, kept ringing. By evening, the clouds had gathered again. Not enough to promise rain, but enough to make the lights strange. The world had turned the color of tarnished silver. The wind had picked up, carrying the smell of iron and dust. Isaac Burns sat on his porch, a lamp flickering weakly beside him, and watched the horse graze in the yard. It hadn't strayed far from the church gate since morning. It walked the same small circle, stopping every so often to lift its head toward the sound of the bell. That bell hadn't stopped all day. Sometimes it rang slow and distant, like it was half asleep. Other times it came sharp and sudden, cutting the air. Isaac had climbed the tower once, years ago, when he still had the strength, and found the rope torn and the clapper rusted in place. There had been no reason it should ever move again. And yet it did. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You hear it too, don't you, boy?" he said. The horse flicked an ear, but didn't turn. Isaac looked at the tower. The bell swung gently, though the air around it was still. The wind that brushed his face never reached the steeple. He stood, grunting softly, and made his way across the road. His cane tapped on the gravel, slow and steady. The horse turned to watch him as he passed, its eyes catching the lamplight, a dull, deep brown that seemed almost human in their calm. The gate to the churchyard hung crooked. He pushed it open, the hinges crying out after years of silence. The grass inside had grown tall, covering the gravestones up to their names. The bell rang again as he stepped through, the sound hollow, almost shy this time. "All right," he said, looking up at the tower. "Let's see what game you're playing." He climbed the steps slowly, one hand gripping the rail, the other holding the cane like a second leg. The wood creaked under his weight. By the time he reached the belfry, his breath came in uneven pulls. The bell hung there, still as a sleeping thing. Its surface was blackened, the metal pitted and rough. The rope beneath it dangled in tatters, unmoving. Isaac stood there, staring at it, waiting. Nothing. Then, as he turned to leave, the air around him shifted. The faintest tremor. The bell moved. Just once. A small swing, barely more than a shiver, but enough to let out one low, hollow tone that rolled through the valley like fog. Isaac gripped the railing to steady himself. The sound hung in the air, long after the bell stopped. He whispered, "Not the wind. Not the rope." Below, the horse whinnied softly as if in answer. Isaac looked down through the slats of the floor. The animal stood at the base of the hill, facing the church, completely still. Its ears were forward, eyes fixed on the tower. The old man's throat tightened. "You've seen this before, haven't you?" he murmured. "You know what it means." He made his way back down the stairs, slower than before, his cane thudding against each step. When he reached the door, the air outside felt heavier. The horizon had darkened, not from rain, but from the shadow of clouds that didn't move. The bell tolled again. Once. Twice. The sound echoed through the empty houses of the village, bouncing off walls and fences, fading into the hills like something alive. The horse stamped a hoof. Its breath came in short, visible bursts. Isaac crossed the road, hand trembling on the cane. "It's all right," he said softly, though his voice was unsteady. "It's just sound. Just sound." But he didn't believe it. He stopped at the fence, the wind cold now against his face. The horse turned its head toward him, and for a moment, Isaac thought he saw something move in its eyes. Reflection, maybe, or the flicker of the lamp back on the porch. But it looked like firelight. He looked back at the tower. The bell was still ringing, its rhythm strange now, slower, deeper, the kind of tone that made your bones feel hollow. "Not for the living," Isaac said under his breath. The horse snorted and stepped back, muscles twitching along its flank. The wind died again, leaving only the bell. Isaac stood there until the last chime faded, replaced by silence so thick it felt solid. Then, the horse began to walk. It moved toward the road slow and deliberate, head low, as if following something unseen. Isaac called out once, not loudly, more a plea than a command. The horse didn't stop. The sound of its hooves faded into the distance, swallowed by the valley. The bell rang once more, faint and far away. And when it stopped, the world held its breath, waiting, listening, as though something had answered. That night, the air didn't cool. The heat sat heavy over the valley, pressing down on the roofs and fences like an invisible weight. The crickets were silent. Even the wind had stopped. And yet, the bell kept ringing. Isaac Burns sat by the window with the lamp turned low. The house creaked with age, its boards shifting softly like they remembered the sound of footsteps. He hadn't seen the horse since dusk. It had followed the road west, hooves vanishing into the mist that gathered near the riverbed. He'd listened to the sound until it faded completely. But the bell hadn't stopped once. Every few minutes it called, long and low, as though it came from somewhere much deeper than the church tower. The sound rolled through the town's empty streets, touching every house, every field. It wasn't loud, but it filled everything. Isaac had lived through storms, droughts, floods, but never this. Never a sound that felt alive. He poured himself a small measure of whiskey, the liquid trembling in his hand, and muttered, "You'll go mad listening to it." He set the glass down and went outside. The night was pale, washed in moonlight. The air shimmered faintly, thick with humidity that should have meant rain but didn't. The bell rang again, steady, mournful. Isaac walked down the path to the road, his cane thudding softly against the dirt. The sound echoed strangely, like he was the only thing left in the world making noise. He stopped at the church gate. The tower loomed dark against the sky. The bell swung gently, slow, hypnotic. The rope below it hung still. "Who are you calling for?" he whispered. He looked down the road, the same road the horse had taken. It glowed faintly in the moonlight, pale and endless, cutting through the fields like a scar. A shape appeared there, far off. At first, Isaac thought it was the horse returning. But as it came closer, he saw it move too lightly, too quickly. A person, walking. He gripped the gate, heart quickening. No one had walked this road in months. The figure came closer, step by step, until it passed beneath the streetlight at the crossroads. A young woman, or maybe not so young, her face thin, her clothes clinging to her like wet cloth. She walked barefoot, her hair plastered to her forehead. She didn't look at him, didn't look at the church. She walked straight down the road, following the same path the horse had taken, her arms hanging at her sides. Isaac called out, "Miss, you lost?" No answer. The bell rang again, louder this time, and the woman froze. Her head lifted slightly, just enough for the moonlight to catch her face. Her eyes were open but unfocused, staring at nothing. Then she kept walking. Isaac's voice trembled. "You shouldn't go that way. There's nothing down there." Still no answer. He took a step forward, then stopped. The bell rang once more, sharp, cutting. The sound made his chest ache, deep and sudden, like his ribs had turned hollow. He gripped the fence for balance. "Stop it," he rasped. "Please." The woman was almost gone now, her figure fading into the mist that hung low along the road. And then, faintly, hooves. The horse's steps, slow and even, coming from the same direction. Isaac's breath caught. The two sounds, hooves and bare feet, merged, out of rhythm but moving together. The bell tolled again, matching their pace. He watched until both shapes disappeared completely into the fog. Then, silence. For the first time in days, the bell stopped. The air felt heavier without it. Isaac stood there a long time, the moonlight silvering his hands. Finally, he whispered, "You're not calling for the living anymore, are you?" He turned back toward the house. His knees ached, his chest hurt, but he walked slow, steady. When he reached the porch, he looked once more at the tower. The bell hung still now, the metal dark and cold. But as he stepped inside, another sound began, faint at first, then growing clearer. Not the bell, hoofbeats, steady, slow, coming from the road again. He turned sharply, peering through the window. The mist had thickened, but he could see the faint outline of something large moving up the road. Too large for a man, too steady for wind. The horse. It stopped in front of the gate, head low, its breath clouding in the moonlight. Something hung from its neck now. The old church bell's clapper, rusted and heavy, swinging gently with each breath. Isaac's voice failed him. He pressed a hand to the glass, watching. The horse looked toward the house, eyes dark and unreadable. Then it turned, and as it walked away, the clapper struck against the metal of the bell it carried. Once, twice. The sound was small but clear, a final echo of the bell that had fallen silent. And when the horse vanished again into the mist, the sound went with it, leaving only the whisper of the wind, soft, uncertain, and empty as the road itself. By morning, the mist had sunk into the fields, clinging to the grass like a second skin. The light that came through it was pale, almost colorless, making the world look older, as if time itself had been scraped thin. Isaac Byrne hadn't slept. He'd spent the night in his chair by the window, watching the road until the lamp burned out. The image of the horse, that slow, deliberate walk, and the bell's dull ringing from its neck, had fixed itself in his mind. Every time he blinked, he saw it again, the faint shimmer of fog swallowing its outline. When the sun finally rose, he went outside. The air was damp but not cool. The road glistened faintly, though there had been no rain. His footprints from the night before had blurred, softened by the weight of dew. He looked toward the church. The bell tower stood silent again, its cross tilting slightly against the pale sky. The door hung open, swaying once with the morning breeze before stilling. He walked slowly, cane tapping against the wet earth, the sound swallowed by fog. The silence around him felt thick, like the world was holding its breath. When he reached the church gate, he stopped. Something dark lay in the grass beside it, a mark, wide and uneven. He knelt, knees cracking, and touched it. Hoof prints. They circled the gate, pressed deep into the soft earth. The edges were wet but not fresh. The ground smelled faintly of iron, and something else, something old. Isaac straightened, following the tracks. They led into the yard, past the graves, around the church, and then down the road again, always circling back, as if the horse had been searching for something it couldn't find. He followed them all the way to the front steps. The wooden boards there were damp, streaked with mud, and one of the steps bore a single nail driven deep at an angle. Hanging from it by a frayed strip of rope was the clapper, the same one he'd seen around the horse's neck. It swung gently, tapping against the step with each breath of wind. Tink, tink, tink. Isaac stared at it for a long moment, his throat dry. "You brought it back," he whispered. The sound seemed to answer, a slow, metallic whisper, soft as breath. He turned toward the road. The fog was thinning now, pulling away in long, white strands. For the first time in weeks, he could see the far hills, faint outlines in the distance. Something in the air had changed. He took a deep breath, and it smelled like rain. Not much, just the ghost of it, far away, as if the valley remembered what it used to be. He looked up at the tower. The bell was still. The wind brushed through the ivy, making a sound almost like murmuring. For a moment, it felt like the world was listening, not to the past, not to ghosts, but to the quiet heartbeat of the land itself. He turned and started walking back home. The road felt different under his boots, softer, the dust packed by moisture. He passed the empty houses, their windows gray with condensation. The air hummed faintly, not with sound, but with weight, the feeling that something had shifted, if only slightly. When he reached his porch, he stopped. The trough by the barn was half full again, not with rainwater, but with fog that had condensed overnight. A small mercy, and standing beside it, almost invisible in the pale light, was the horse. Its coat was still streaked with dust, but its mane was damp now, and drops of water clung to its muzzle. It turned its head toward him slowly, eyes dark, patient. Isaac whispered, "You came back." The horse didn't move. He took a step closer, heart beating fast, as if afraid that if he blinked, it would vanish again. "It's over, isn't it?" Whatever that was. The horse blinked once, slow. Then it turned its head toward the church. Isaac followed its gaze. Far off, through the thinning mist, the bell rang once more. Just a single note, deep and clear. The horse exhaled, long and low, like a sigh. And then it walked past him, heading down the road again. Not east, not west, just forward, following the curve that led into the open fields. Its hooves left faint prints that filled with dew behind it. Isaac watched until the shape blurred and disappeared into the horizon. When he turned back toward the church, the sound of the bell was gone. He went inside his house, sat by the window again, and for the first time in years, didn't light the lamp. The light outside was enough, gray, soft, quiet. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled, low, patient, promising nothing but reminding him that the sky still remembered how. Isaac closed his eyes, whispering, "If you find the rain, tell it we're still here." And in that silence, heavy and endless, the wind began to move again.